Welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast. I'm super honored to have today's stranger, but not really a stranger anymore. After I think 7 years, has become a friend and a leader that I very much admire. Putty Putman, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's so good to be here. I'm excited.
Thank you. I met Putty, about 7 years ago. I was doing something called the School of Kingdom Ministry, and he was a teacher. And I guess I first met you online, which is
Mm.
funny. We received the video simulcast teachings, but then from there, it's wild how the paths have crossed. But through some Vineyard conferences, and then through working at our church, a couple of years later, it's just been wild. And I got to go on a mission trip with Putty in January to El Salvador as well. And I'm just so moved by your life and just what God has brought you into, what you have taught the world. It's really remarkable. So, would you mind sharing with our listeners just a little bit about who you are as we get started?
Totally. Yeah, I have a unique backstory. I'm right now. I'll start with where I'm at, and I suppose I'll rewind. So right now I live in the Phoenix metro. I moved out here just a little more than 2 years ago, February in 23, and I came out here to plant a sort of experimental church. I had a bunch of different wild ideas and different ways to try things, and seemed like a blank slate was the best way to go about that. And one thing led to another, and so I'm out here doing that right now. But I was never supposed to do things like that. Once upon a time, I was trained as a scientist. Actually, believe it or not, have a PhD in theoretical quantum physics of all things, and was on a great track with that. Really enjoyed it. I was doing well in the field, and kind of in the middle of that, God interrupted my life rather dramatically. Also on the mission field, I was in China. Really dramatic experience. Kind of introduced me to the reality of the Holy Spirit and how tangible and concrete He can be, which I just did not have a grid for, and that wound up redirecting my journey over the years. And so, from sometimes in my in joking moments, I refer to myself as a physicist trapped in a pastor's body, which feels accurate to me. I'm like, there's still a lot of me that's a physicist, but somehow I'm doing this other thing instead. But
So
yeah, I'm married. Been married for just celebrated actually 20 years. I've got 3 kids.
happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah. It's crazy. I can't. You turn around and it just goes. It's unbelievable. That makes me feel old. Like it's one of the first times where I'm like 20 years. Like that's a long time. Like that's a long time. So, but I got 3 wonderful kids, 2 teenagers, a 9-year-old, and yeah, that's a little bit about me, I suppose.
It's amazing. I love it so much. Do you see your physics background play out in your day to day at all as you're planting a church and teaching Holy
Oh
Spirit
yeah.
ministry?
No, totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm a very strange I like my job is a weird amalgamation of a lot of things. Like if you're going to look at my day to day is like one part church planting pastor, one part like app development, one part like trying to sort of like theorize about structures of human collaboration, and then one part like preparing to go on some ministry trip somewhere else in the world. And so I blend together a lot of really diverse things. And in the midst of all of that, yeah, like I don't do physics in the sense that I'm not like, crunching numbers and solving problems about physical objects in the same way that I used to, but it shaped the way I think. And so I can't not think like a physicist. And whether I'm, you know, developing software or I'm, writing a message or I'm praying for someone to, for whatever life situation they're navigating through, that physicist in me comes out. It kind of has to. And, there's obviously pros and cons to that, but there's a lot of people that seem to find it somewhat refreshing to have just a very, very different angle in terms of when I teach the Bible. It's like I think it just comes out different because of all that. So,
How does a, if you could speak to the average person, how
sure.
does a physicist think?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's a wonderful question. So, physics is the most mathematical of the sciences. And so, um, there are some sciences which are largely like you can't do mathematical modeling in some of them, right? So there's like a lot of like biology where it's not like biologists are writing formulas down and crunching formulas and stuff, that you can in some areas, but in physics, like if you do not have like equations, you are not doing physics. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not doing physics. Like it's exceedingly mathematical. And what that translates to is a kind of general approach in terms of like what physicists do is they look at a whole and then they break down all the individual parts and they sort of understand each part together, and then they resynthesize an understanding of the whole from understanding all the different parts. And so it's that kind of like moving between levels of analysis thing. Like I'm looking at the whole, then I'm looking at the individuals, then I'm understanding that, and then I'm going back to the whole and I'm understanding up here. And I think that that's often what winds up, being helpful. Like I often have people tell me things like, man, you just make like connections between the Bible that I've never heard anybody make before. And it's because I'm just doing that same thing. I'm like taking this little bit and I'm like connecting it up here and saying like, look, hey, here's a connection that maybe we didn't understand. This just looks like a little detail, but it's actually like connected to this thing in the big picture. And that can just draw out some interesting, dynamics, I suppose, in the Bible and so on. And so, yeah, it's that kind of working at different scales thing that physicists are pretty good at.
I love that. It is your teaching is so like concrete and applicable, and yeah, it's just I've never yeah met a pastor who teaches like you teach,
No.
and it's so rich and yeah, and like so many ahas, like oh my gosh, every time you preach, I'm like this yeah, it's
Oh,
really remarkable. Um, for you personally, in your relationship with God, do you find like you interact with Him in that way as well?
that's a great question. Um, I have to think about that question. I don't know that I've ever thought about that precisely. Um, if you press me to sort of describe the quality of my interactions with God, I feel like um I feel like most things in my life that have been God directed are things I tripped over.
Hmm.
Like like some people seem like they like look for God and they find him or something. For me, it's mostly been like moments and places where I wasn't really trying to do what God was doing, and then God kind of just like hijacks me, or like, like I sort of trip over and I fall on my face, and then I get up and I turn around and I'm like, what was that? And it's like, oh, wow, that was God.
Hmm.
And so for me, like the quality of my walk with God often involves, it just feels like I'm the uh I don't know, from a literature point of view, I feel like I'm the anti-hero. Like I'm the
Hmm.
guy who's just like I'm the goofy sidekick who just kind of like happens to be standing next to the hero when the hero does something awesome.
Hmm.
But the one thing I can do is like recognize like, oh, that's God. I want to get on board with that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my interaction with God actually feels like it has that kind of quality. Like when God talks, he often says something that's like, that's not what I expected you to say. Like what? Like I feel like I'm constantly being sort of surprised or thrown off base or confused or disoriented. Um, but each one is a test. Like, can you still say yes? Will you still, sign up again or whatever? And so to me, that's a lot of the quality of my actual like personal relationship with God,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think that's so encouraging for like people that it can be that way too.
Mm.
Um, because I was just at a young adult conference in France, and they were so hungry for God and like really looking for him everywhere. And
Awesome.
I almost like to tell them like it's okay, relax, like a
Mm.
bit, and like he will find you,
Yeah.
like almost a different posture. And so I feel like yours is a almost like an adventure of
Hmm.
like, and God like I don't know, throwing out confusing things or like things for you to explore and discover, and like it just sounds so like fun. And I'm sure it's hard like giving your yes, like what am I giving my yes to? Like,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
it sounds like an adventure
Yeah.
with God.
It is an adventure. It definitely is. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I see a lot of Christians who like they sort of portray this whole thing, which is like, it's like I know what I'm doing, or I have this figured out, or all this kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I'm not convinced that like anyone who's portraying I know what I'm doing or I know how this is supposed to work. I'm like, have you read the actual Bible? Like, in the actual Bible, other than Jesus, like pretty much everybody's confused by everything God does. Like every time he shows up, everybody's like, what is happening? Like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't how it's supposed to go, God. Like, how many times is that like sort of the sub theme of the story? Like you're not supposed
Yeah.
to do it this way, God. And I think to me, yeah, there's just a quality of that. It's just like, wow, like God is unpredictable and we don't know what he's gonna do, and we just have to be willing to keep finding him over and
Mhm.
over again, and know that we'll never find all that there is to be found because you never run out of him. And
Yeah.
so it's always got that quality to it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know that I can endorse the TV show Seinfeld because there's a bunch of like content that's maybe not always the best on there. But like my walk with God feels like Seinfeld. It's kind of like it is like it's ridiculous, it's unexpected, it's silly, but it's also just like so normal that it shouldn't
Mm.
feel that normal or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes, I
It's
love that.
yeah,
My
it's
walk with God feels like Seinfeld. That's a
that's
good
what it feels like to me. I don't know what to tell you.
I love that. Could you share just like a tangible example of like when you felt surprised by God or invited into something, um, and kind of went down a rabbit hole or said yes to something?
Sure, yeah. Well, so I'll tell you a story. I probably haven't told you this one yet. Is totally crazy. So our church that we were planting in Arizona is a lot of fun, and it's very messy. There's lots of room for God to do lots of stuff, and so everything is sort of always everywhere, and lots of stuff is happening, and I don't know what half of it is a lot of the time. And this past year in April, I think it was Palm Sunday, the week before Easter. Um, like we don't have like a set plan and order for our services, so I never really know how long they're going to go.
Mm.
And in this particular Sunday, like the worship was just crazy. And so we had gone so long. We had gone so long. Um, and we're getting towards the end, and I'm just like, gosh, this has got to wrap up. Like, this is so long. Like, we got kids and they've been there way too long. Everybody's got low blood sugar and all that. And so we're about to wrap up the service, and this guy comes up front and he says, "Hey guys, I before we wrap up, I gotta tell everybody something." And so he starts talking about how he kind of connected to our church, and he's got this background that's very different. And so our church like really weirded him out at first, but God's done, all these cool things while he's there and blah blah blah. And he's like telling all this, and I'm like, yeah, 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 okay, this is great, but like we could kind of like be done. And then he goes, hey, so during worship there, so and so came over and prayed for me. And God's been kind of talking to me about like healing, and he's kind of said like he's healing me from the inside out. And I don't really know what that meant, but I was like, okay. And then so and so came over and prayed for me, and then his like 3-year-old came over and prayed too. And when his 3-year-old came over, he put his hand on my leg, and I knew that this was the moment that God was talking about. And he goes, So look, guys, and he gets up out of a wheelchair for the first time in 10 years and starts
Wow.
walking around in front of everybody. And like this wasn't like nobody even knew there was a prayer. Like we're just like singing a song. And then this guy's like,
Wow.
look, I can walk now. And so he starts walking around in front of everybody. And the whole room just goes like pin drop silent because we're all like, we've never seen this guy not in a
Yeah.
wheelchair. Like what is happening, you know? And he's like, I know, right? And we're like, what? And so he walks around, you know, we gives him hugs and stuff,
Wow.
and then he eventually sits back down in the chair because he had 10 years of atrophy, so his like muscles can't hold himself up very long. Um, and so you hear that and you go, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Well, 5 minutes later, I'm having a conversation with him where he's completely panicking. He's like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do without disability? And I don't have a job and da da da. And he calls me that afternoon in a panic attack because he's like, I just completely lost control of my life and I have no idea like what this means. And I'm like, dude, if God's gonna heal your body, he's gonna take care of the rest of your life too. Like, I don't know
Mm,
what it means, but we'll figure it out together, you know?
yeah.
And so next thing I know, I'm like pastoring this guy through panic attacks because he got healed for 10 years of irreversible nerve disorder, you know?
Wow.
And then we're like, oh man, well now he needs physical therapy, but because he doesn't have a job, because he hasn't been able to get a job, because he can't get to a job, he can't afford it. So now we're like, it's like, so well, okay, well, I think our church could probably pay for some of your physical therapy, and so
Yeah.
our church is like sort of sponsoring his physical therapy and but so I mean to me that's what the whole thing like that is so descriptive of it. If it's like, okay, first of all, major miracle happens right over there. Nobody even knew it. And so it's like, what? And then
Wow.
you hear it and you're like, this is amazing. God's fantastic. And then it's like, oh wait, but there's like panic attacks and there's there's like physical therapy bills, you know? Oh, okay. Well, we should do that, So it's like all the very practical, like Seinfeldy kind of stuff or something. But on the other side, he's telling me just last week, he was like, yeah, I went and they did this nerve test and they poked me with all these different things and they basically the report came back and they said like your nerves now work normal, which
Wow.
is kind of impossible. Like so we don't know what
Wow.
to do with that, so to me that's it right there. It's like the paradox of the bizarrely unreal and the supremely real
Mm,
bundled together in this like surprising and kind of awkward way.
yeah.
And you just gotta go, okay, yeah, we'll figure out the physical therapy. I don't know how that works,
Yeah.
but I feel like we can somehow figure that out. Like you just gotta
Yes.
kind of keep, okay, sure. You need to talk this afternoon because you're having a panic attack, dude. Let me talk you through it. Like that's totally cool. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit. It
Wow.
was wild. I'll send you some pictures.
I
I'll
know,
send
that's
you
so
pictures. Remind me
wild.
after this. It was
Yes.
unbelievable. I mean, I've never quite had a moment like that where the whole room was just completely silent for like 30 seconds, a
Yeah.
minute. Like nobody says everything. And then at the end, I'm like, oh wait, this is one of those moments where like you should like lead or something. But I'm completely like flabbergasted, like I'm dumbfounded.
Mm,
And so I get up in front of everybody and I go, hey everybody, that's what we do here. We're gonna do more of that. That's what the kingdom of God looks like. That's
amen.
Jesus in action. That's what we do. That we're gonna do that. See you next
Wow.
week. Come back for Easter. Like
Come back.
wild.
Wow, that is so wild.
Yeah,
Oh, I love
crazy.
it. I love how
Totally
like
crazy.
unexpected it was and like yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Powerful.
yeah. It was nuts. Totally nuts. Really cool.
Yeah. And I love how it's like all of it, like you said. It's like miraculous, but then also an opportunity for community to come around and like help him walk out his healing and like yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good. I love it
There-
so
There's
much.
there's a thing that I think most people misunderstand when they start, and I did, when they start sort of like bumping into things that we would label as quote supernatural. And that is that like it's easy to assume that the supernatural is like less real. like it's somehow glitzy or it's somehow Hollywoody, and like the normal realities of life like don't apply because of the supernatural thing. And my experience is it's actually the opposite of that. It like the supernatural doesn't feel glitzy, it feels gritty. Like it feels raw, it feels awkward, it feels like, but it feels real. Like it's more real than real. It's not less real than real, it's more real than real. And so which I mean to me is like so parallel to the Bible, right? Like, how does Jesus show up? Like in a manger, like with pooping animals. Like, it's not with glitz and glamour, but with like it's kind of a raw, earthy, real thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's often how the supernatural works. And so if you happen to be around it, like don't think you're getting off the hook for all of that. Like don't think if you happen to get a healing gift that you're going to write less emails. You're going to write more emails, not less emails probably. Because the two come hand in hand. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Hmm.
What would you say to like someone who just heard this story and they're like, "What? This like happens?" How do they like, and they're like intrigued, like, they want more. Like, what do you say to someone like that?
Totally. So the first thing I would say is I totally get where you're at, because for me, like my background, like I was a scientist, right? And so I don't I don't sign up for this stuff easily. When I first wound up around people who attested to this kind of thing, I was very skeptical. I was very closed. And so if you're confused, closed, skeptical, any of that, totally get it. And what I would say is that, like, well, uh, either it does or it doesn't. And like stuff like this either does happen or doesn't happen. And the only way you're going to find out is by going and actually like trying to put yourself around the people who supposedly experience it. Like sometimes people are like, oh, no, that doesn't happen. And it's like, well, did you look into it? Or did you just like assume it doesn't happen because it's not a box in your head? And I get it if it's not, but like, isn't most of life learning to replace the boxes that were in your head from like growing up? like,
No?
I mean, I was having a conversation, I mean, that's pretty much all of life. Like, you realize, like, oh, the world isn't the box in my head. I need to change the box in my head to fit the world. And you go through that like 100 times, over the course of your life. And what I would say is like, I get it, man. Like, if this wasn't the kind of situation where he's getting like nerve tests that are coming back saying your nerves now function normally and they didn't before, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what I think about that either. Um, but at this point in my life, I've just seen enough things. Like, I've seen before and after x-rays where things are cracked or broken and then they're not cracked or broken, or, missing and then not missing, or whatever it is. And it is wild. And it's definitely not something that is like, again, it's messy, right? It's not clean. And so, but I've seen enough at this point that has convinced this physicist. And I would just encourage you to check it out and see if it's real too. And if it stretches you, well, that's kind of life. Life is meant to stretch us, I think. So
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. Yeah, I love that life is like replacing the boxes. That's really, really true in so many ways. That's so good. Well, earlier on, you were talking about like creating an app, planting a church,
yeah.
teaching worldwide. It really feels like you have this calling that's like cutting edge, like on the brink of technology, and the brink of church,
Mm.
like planting, building, like everything feels very, what's the word? Like you're going first, you're pioneering.
Mm.
Were you like that when you were a kid?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I don't know that I would have had. Well, I should say something. Um, I often hear people say things like that, and I don't dispute it. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I should say that my experience doesn't feel like that. I don't look at myself and say I feel like I'm a pioneer. I just
Okay.
feel like I'm like I got an interesting idea. I think it's worth trying. You know, so to
Yeah.
me, I feel curious more than I feel cutting edge,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, and so when I look back over history and I look back growing up, I'm like, I probably was more than I realized, but I didn't identify it. But I was insatiably curious growing up. Like I was one of those kids that just drove my parents crazy with all the questions. And I did kind of have a way of like sort of starting new, unique, like off the wall things kind of everywhere I went. Like I just like I always had ideas I wanted to try. And it was like I never got in trouble for being bad, but I definitely got in trouble for doing things that were significantly outside the lines. Like I remember, here's a little story.
Yeah.
I remember growing up. So, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, which you're quite familiar with. And every school in the Chicago suburbs has a baseball field, and every baseball field has that like big chain link like backdrop thing, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's this huge thing, it's like 2 stories up, and then you've got like the chain link fences that go on each side down to the dugout. And so my elementary school had one of those. And we would like it was within walking distance. And I remember thinking one day, man, you could make a really sweet zip line if you like tied it up on the top there and you tied it down to the dugout. Like I should try that sometime. So like as a like fourth grader one day or fifth grader or something, I climb all the way up there and I tie this rope and I run it all the way down and I tie it and I don't even know what I had to try and I had some kind of a stick or something I was gonna try and use
I
as the
love it.
bar, you know. And I'm up there, I've climbed all the way up, I've got the bar up there. I'm like trying to figure out how I'm gonna like swing around so I can like try and ride the thing down. And a police officer comes by and he's like,
Oh
"What are you doing up there, kid?" And I'm like, should I not be up here?
no.
I think you might get hurt. Maybe we shouldn't do that." And I was like, "Okay," like it was always stuff like that. Like that, that's just always been me. Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Building things from the fourth grade.
Yeah,
That's
trying stupid ideas since the fourth grade is usually
awesome.
what it is, but yeah.
That's so fun. I think what's really neat about you is like, I don't know if you feel fear when you do like these new things, but it sounds like the curiosity trumps the fear.
Yeah.
Has it felt like that for you? And what would you say to, because I feel like a lot of people have really cool ideas, but they're like get stuck or afraid to
Mm,
try or start.
sure.
Like, what would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I love that question. Um, I think I would say is when I get started, I do feel more curiosity than fear. Um, and it might just be like I may not be very good at thinking through all the potential consequences. Like I think a lot of people they're like, well, if I did this, then it means like this and this and this and this and that, and those things are hard.
Yeah.
And I think I just like don't think about those things quite as well. And so what kind of tends to happen is like the fear kicks in once I'm already committed. So like moving out here to Phoenix and all of this, like I didn't feel terribly afraid. It was like 6 months in when I'm like, what did I do? Like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah.
that's when it was like scarier, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, I kind of just keep like jumping in and not realizing what I'm doing until then I'm like, oh no, well I'm in it now, and so I guess I just have to
I
figure
like
it
it.
out. I don't know, like so
Love
I
it.
think there's a lot of that to it. But the curiosity is the biggest part. And I think what I would say to someone who is, kind of like that, they've got an idea but wrestling with fear and so on. And like, I don't know, like I think sometimes we take life too seriously. Like I would rather live life trying too hard than not trying hard enough. And like I would just say like the worst that will happen is probably nowhere near as bad as you think it is. And like, what good could happen? Like, like there's so much cool, like, God has made so many cool things. Like, this can be such a cool world. but you got to be willing to step out and try things. And so I would say, like, get in touch with that curiosity, like dream a little, and I've usually found that, like, when I'm moved by my dreams instead of by the practicals, eventually the practicals will catch up and terrify you, but you can usually figure them out. Like there's a lot of room in the practicals of life. It doesn't feel like there is. There really actually is a lot of room in the practicals of life. Um, and so I'd rather be someone who's chasing my dreams and dealing with practical problems than somebody who doesn't get out the door in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm just convinced it's a richer way to live life. And I would say try it, just try it in a small way. You
Yeah.
don't have to, like, I've had two times now where the Lord's asked me to basically give up my career and start over. Once leaving physics and then once leaving a really fruitful season of ministry in Illinois and coming out here. And both times it felt like I buried like 10 years of my life and just started all over again, which was super hard. But I would say, like, it wasn't like I started there. It was like by the time we're facing these kinds of things, like I've I've jumped off enough cliffs with the Lord that, like, I'm like, well, I just know how it goes, like you don't have to jump to the biggest thing. You got to get used to taking small risks. You got to get used to trying small things. And the other thing, I don't know. I mean, you've kind of got me a little speculative today, Lauren. This is good, I guess.
Good.
Like, I'm obviously a person of faith, right? That's clear at this point. Um, I think what God does is he invites us into a lot in our lives where what he's always doing is he's always kind of confirming to us that, like, the God who has taken up residence inside us because we're following Jesus is the God who is the same God out here in the world around me. And what he's always doing is he's always kind of crossing the bridge between what he does inside of me and what he does in the world around me. He's crossing that bridge to show me that, like, oh, he is the same God out there and he's God in here too. Um, but, like, that is always contingent on us stepping out to sort of take something that we've experienced and put it into the world around us. Because it's only when you put something in the world around you that God has a chance to be like, look, it's me. And so, like, there's so many things where it's just like, man, just get it out into action in the world around you, and you never know what's going to happen. And I am convinced that God is, like, so much more involved in this world than we think he is. We just, like, don't give him many chances to show up. If you think about it, like, most of us, our ideal day is, like, so comfortable and so safe that we never need God to do anything at all. And so it's like, okay, well, if God gets one chance a week to do something in your life, like, no wonder you think he doesn't do anything.
Mm,
Like,
yeah. Wow.
like what if we just got used to giving God lots of chances? And you might be shocked how much he's out there. And then once that becomes more normal, you're like, oh, like, that's what I do with my life. Like, I take chances to see that God's out there. And then that becomes a thing you keep growing into where you eventually take the bigger chances or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that's so good. That's like, yeah, beautifully said. So good. Oh, I love that. I want to quote that. Well, as we wrap up, one of the other things I love about you is your storytelling. I think
Mm.
it's just really, I'm always just captivated. You number one have stories to tell. Like you live big risks and small risks. And so that's beautiful. And but then also how you tell stories. Could you just share like a little bit about how you do that?
Oh, wow. That's also great. You've got, like, all these great, I don't get to do interviews quite this open. And so I love how you're taking it in ways I don't get to do all that often. It's rich. Um, well, I think my storytelling is actually really um it's coherent, it's consistent with my overall like sort of communication philosophy. And my communication philosophy is very like un I don't know if untrained or unprofessional or something is the word, but like I actually have had surprisingly little training in this area, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But that's just sort of maybe turned into me doing sort of figuring out my own way there. And the way I approach communication is like, first of all, I've never been a good salesperson. Like it's hard for me to try to convince anyone of anything. Like, or at least if I feel like I'm trying to convince you of something, like I just don't like that. Like it feels like icky to me. And so some people approach communication like it's a sales thing. Like my job is to try to convince you that my idea is right or something like that. And I'm not saying that's all bad. Like, I don't know, there's probably lots of times and places for that. I just know it doesn't work well for me. What works for me is to actually like not try and communicate at all, but to just try to think through things out loud in front of people. So, like you've probably seen me speak enough on Sunday on church venues that I don't usually refer to my notes much, if at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes people look at me and they're like, "Wow, you're so amazing. You can remember the whole message." And I'm like, "I don't remember the whole message. All
Mhm.
I really remember is like what question am I trying to wrestle with? And then I just think through it out loud." Like
Wow.
and if your message is just like, "Oh, I'm just like thinking through things out loud in the order they seem to make sense in," then like you don't need a lot of notes, you know? You're just like, well, I don't know. I mean, this is a thought, and that thought kind of leads me to that thought, and so I think my storytelling is sort of the same. Like, I don't think of myself as telling stories. What I actually am trying to do is relive the story in my experience and narrate what I'm reliving. So like what I just told, the story with the guy in our church, like I'm in my head, I'm in the room and I'm looking at him and he's like, "Hey guys, look." And he stands up and I remember just being like, "What what?" like and so all I'm doing is just talking while I kind of relive the experience inside, if that makes sense. That's probably a pretty amateur version of storytelling. I'm sure like if I really knew what I was doing, I'd do it differently than that.
Mm.
And it'd probably be more effective, but that's the way I got. And
Yeah,
so,
I love it.
you do the best with the tools you can handle, I suppose, or
Yeah.
something like that.
I love that. But then yeah, it is I love that you're like actually reliving it and then you're bringing people into those moments. Like that seems really, I don't know, like there's something to that.
Yeah, I think both between the teaching and the storytelling, like that's often sort of stuff I hear. It's like I just feel sort of like drawn in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, yeah, I think it's because I am just sort of like I'm just like living myself and inviting you into it, and it
Yes.
seems like people respond to it.
Yep. It's so good. Oh, I love it. Well, Putty, thank you so much for your time. Just as we leave, would you mind just praying a blessing over our listeners, whatever, however you feel led? Or
Totally.
if you want to say any Holy Spirit things or whatever however you feel led, I'd welcome, yeah, that. And thank you
I
so
would
much.
love to. I would love to. Jesus, I thank you for this time. And thank you for each person, Lord, who is hearing this whenever and wherever they are hearing it. And Jesus, I just thank you for, I suppose, the journey that I've been on of tripping over you and recognizing you in hindsight, but then having at least enough sense to try and get on board when I see that it's you. And Lord, I just acknowledge that, like, that's I think, a grace or something. And I just release that grace right now to each person who's hearing this. Like, whether you consider yourself a person of faith or not, like, may you bump into God soon. May you trip over him soon. And may, when that happens, just your life get caught up with like curiosity and wonder and just an enthusiasm about like, wow, what could life be as I sort of give a yes to this unexpected way that something very unexpected has shown up in my life. And so I bless you to be surprised by God and to be caught up with curiosity and wonder, and to be able to be so caught up with that that you're willing to give yeses that would be scary if you stopped and thought about them enough. But that along the way, you would discover that it was really God all along, and that He has all the details that would be scary if we were to be able to stop and think about them. And that your life can be just a wonderful adventure with Him. And so I bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, buddy. You're the best.
Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. It was fun to be here.